Recently spent a day tagging along with members of the Camden Police Department. And what I can tell you is Camden's story is not as clear cut as defunding the police.
It was just arrest, arrest, arrest.
Gabe Rodriguez grew up in Camden shopping for school supplies on this very street he's patrolling today.
It's actually one of my uncles right there.
It's also where he decided he wanted to be a police officer.
So you always associated that interaction with police with that negative time in your life. So I always thought, you know what? It's got to be a better way.
Camden disbanded its department in 2013 and replaced it with a county division. Rodriguez was part of both.
Everything was about arresting. Now what we try to do is it's the community policing perspective, right? It's going out, partnering up with the community, identifying locations of concern, and occupying that space. Bringing the good people out, pushing the bad away.
Cops spend face time with locals. They're taught de-escalation. They focus on larger crimes. Unemployment due to the recession and a growing heroin problem created an untenable situation here in Camden. In 2012, it was one of the murder capitals in the United States.
This actual roadway here, 6th Street, it used to be called a heroin highway. It was one of the most dangerous areas in the city. This is one of those neighborhoods where I said how we measured success was by seeing them coming back out.
Violent and non-violent crime has decreased in Camden since 2014. Now, there's more job opportunities and investment. Still, past police misconduct mean cops need to earn trust. Even Rodriguez admits he's scared of some officers.
Coming out of my barber shop before this pandemic, I was stopped by officers, and again, do you have any warrants? What are you doing out here? Just got a haircut. Why are you stopping me?
Pastor Amir Khan says the lower stats are because police have abandoned parts of Camden.
You'll see people shooting up needles in the arms, and you will see officers sitting in the corner watching them. You'll see drug transactions, officers sitting in the corner. So if you want to say they're not arresting them, I would say correct. But what is it doing to our city?
What's making things worse is the new patrol is mostly outsiders. Unity's director, Ronsha Dickerson, explains the old force was made up of locals.
The same thing that's happened in county police force could have been happening with the city police if we had just taken a moment to reflect, reform it, and then look at a way to make it work.
Khan adds bad cops were not the issue. It was a lack of resources.
We saw officers that looked like us, and you felt more comfortable with that.
Camden is more than 95% Black, Hispanic, or Asian, but only 54% of the county police are minorities. Camden County freeholder Louis Capelli is proposing legislation to change that.
You have to take a test in order to become a police officer. That test is racially biased and culturally biased. It's a proven fact.
Still, Dickerson believes residents, not officials, should have the final say about funding to fix the city. She says more money should be going to social services and mentorship groups like Unity.
Just the social economic strain of just being in a poor city or a city that has not giving a lot of give back to its community. You need certain factors in your community to kind of become safe havens or light bearers.
All these Camdenites love their city, and perhaps that's its greatest hope. They're willing to work to make it the all-American place you want to live.
Michelle, great story. I wanted to say that first. You know, as you were talking to Lieutenant Gabe Rodriguez, he, of course, an officer with Camden City and Camden County, but 157 officers served on both. So why do you think there were more excessive force claims back then if many of the same cops are serving now?
So I asked Lieutenant Rodriguez the same question, and he said, it's really a mentality shift. So for him before, he said it was all about arrests, and it was just overwhelming. The idea that there's so much crime in the city, and it was just being aggressive towards what the situation was at hand. He points out that, when you're a cop, you're called for all kinds of society ills. So he recalled one day to me that was like one of the worst in his career, where he dealt with a mother who murdered her child in front of him, and then right after that had to go to a call about a neighbor complaining about someone who had too much grass on their lawn. So he said that cops were in a tough situation. It was just very violent, and they were in a stressful situation on both sides. But this new community policing model, which really emphasizes working with the community and having them police themselves, it really does help lower stress levels. Now, the opponents say this whole situation really is a political thing. They actually had no problem with the cops before. They felt that more of the issues were based on the fact that the cops just were being defunded gradually by the state for political reasons because they wanted to shift Camden's money to the county. So there's two different sides to look at this, but all that we know is the old system wasn't working.
Michelle, can you give me a little bit of history and context here? Why was Camden City Police shut down in the first place?
So again, as with every story, there's two sides. So the first side of this was the idea that the cops, so if you believe the Camden County side, which is the idea that they felt that there was too much corruption and that the officers were too aggressive and they wanted to dismantle the system, especially because there was lack of state funding, and just rebuild everything from the ground up. The officers were hired back at a lower rate. And so they felt that this was a way to restart the whole office with a new principle, this idea of community policing. But the opponents of this Camden County are saying that it's really just a political reason to take more money away from Camden City. They claim that, it was a budgetary issue. The residents actually didn't really want to get rid of their police department. They liked that it was mostly brown and black officers, and they felt that they had more trust with them. Now a lot of the officers come from outside Camden, and they don't understand the nuances of a community that is really distrustful of the cops themselves. They point out what you pointed out before, that a lot of the cops that are doing good right now were cops that were good in the old system. They just felt like they weren't given a chance to succeed because they just didn't have the right amount of resources. So as I said, so why was it disbanded? It's either a political reason or it's either because they wanted a new system, but I think it's a mixture of both.